Welcome to Postcards to the Universe with Melisa Caprio. Do you believe in magic? What if you were told that all you had to do was get a little creative and work a magic spell to bring anything you can imagine into your life? Here on Postcards to the Universe, we will share manifesting, tips, postcards, creativity, abundance, and prosperity. Here is your host, Melisa Caprio.
Hello and welcome to Postcards to the Universe with Melisa, creating the life you crave. How is everybody doing today? I hope you guys are doing well. It's wonderful Wednesday, my favorite day of the week. Today I have a really cool guest, transformation alchemist, ZofiaRennea Morales, and she's going to join us in just a few minutes, so stay tuned for her. For those of you who listen to my show on a regular basis, welcome back. Thank you for being here with me today. And for those who are new to tuning into my show for the first time, a little about me. I am also an author and a photographer, and my book is titled Postcards to the Universe, Harness the Universe's Power and Manifest Your Dreams. And in my book, there are 30 manifesting stories along with photographs that I took of the contributors manifesting postcards. And in it, I include writing exercises to help us get clear on what we want to manifest, and a toolbox full of fun exercises on how to manifest love, money, health, career, and so much more. So if you guys are interested in doing some inner work exercises and reading people's incredible journeys of transformation, inspiration, and manifesting, please go to your favorite bookstore and you can purchase a copy. It's pretty cool because there's 30 postcards and manifesting stories, and they're side by side, and you can get an idea of what people wanted to bring into their life, and then that was what the story was, is when that comes into their life, it manifested. We shared that story in the book, and one of the stories is mine of getting my book to be traditionally published, so that was pretty cool. Each week I share a magical message that I post on Mondays, and it's an image of a manifesting postcard that I photograph with the affirmation, and I like to focus on a different affirmation for the week, and I believe using affirmations is a powerful way for it to become a new belief in our lives. And now this week's magical message is actually a repost because I didn't have time to create one this week. I had a friend in town, and truthfully, the last couple of days, I'm feeling a bit under the weather, but I'm okay. But I did want to redo this affirmation because I think it's a fantastic one, and it is, I am the artist of my life. So what does being an artist in our own lives mean? Thinking of life as art serves as a powerful metaphor for us as we lead our lives. As the artists, we are the creators of our lives. Artists take responsibility for creating their art. Artists are on a quest to continually perfect their art. Artists know that they are always free to create again in the moment. The power to create lies with the artist and their vision. Each of us is ultimately accountable and responsible for our lives. So what do you want to create? No, sorry, that's not the question. This is the question. What do you want the canvas of your life to look like? Maybe be creative with your dreams. Know what you want to do. Do what you want to do each day. Find happiness in the small things. Go traveling and exploring. Be flexible. Make other people happy. Declare yourself a life artist. Paint your vision. Be open for change and take it on with open arms. Face challenges straight on. Create whatever you want life to be. Walk around cheerfully and celebrate each day. Direct your own life. Walk your own path. Shape your own life as a work of art. Make it unique. Leave your life as if it were a piece of art. Just something to think about when we think about our lives and what we want them to be. And if you want to see my magical messages that I post each week, you can find them across any of my social media platforms, Postcards to the Universe. And if you're on Facebook and you want to join a group that's full of beautiful images and inspirational stories, you can find my group, Postcards of Love, and it's public, and you can join me there. Next week, I have Ariana Corsino on. She's a hypnosis practitioner, and she's helped hundreds of clients communicate with their infinite creator being in order to help them find healing and empowerment. And she created the channel The Realm of Prosperity on YouTube to inspire viewers to look within for answers when addressing life's questions. And we are having a session, her and I, on Friday. So I will tell you guys about it next week when she's on. But to get to my guest today, I'm super excited to talk to her. ZofiaRennea Morales was living the dream until her fast-paced life screeched to a halt and left her in pieces. A single prayer for help triggered an unanticipated kundalini awakening, a spiritual activation that unlocked Sofia's gifts as an intuitive healer and mystic, changing her life completely. She is the host of the talk radio program Sovereign Self and the creator of the Conscious Enlightenment Process. As a transformation alchemist and teacher, she guides clients to find the gold within their most painful life transitions, helping people from all backgrounds. Seasoned with love and laughter, Zofia guides her clients through their own spiritual crisis and onto their paths of passion and purpose with warmth, joy, tenderness, and play. And you can see more about her if you go to her website. It's called transformationspace.co. That's transformationspace.co. Welcome, Sophia. Thanks for joining me today.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, good. I can't wait to talk to you. So I'm going to let you share a little bit about your story with your background and how you got into this kind of, transformational work, because in your bio, obviously, you were, it says you were living the dream until your fast-paced life screeched to a halt and left you in pieces. So I imagine something happened. So I'll let you share in your words what that was.
Maybe screeched isn't exactly the right word, because I had this mystery illness I was dragging around with me for like decades. And every year I would be more tired and more exhausted. I would catch more of the stuff that was going around. But no one could tell me what was wrong. They tested me for like everything under the sun, but hadn't arrived at an answer. And you don't have the answer when they say, well, it could be atypical lupus. It could be atypical, fill in the blank. And it's like, okay, atypical means it's not the right diagnosis.
Right. Yeah, right. Exactly.
And so I had many decades of doctor visits and stuff, but it finally did come to a head over a very short period of time. I think of the process that I went through now as sort of like the holding pen of the soul, so to speak. If you're familiar with cows, I was raised with family that did dairy cattle. When you need to do something with a cow, you don't just walk up to it in the middle of the field and go, hold still, bossy. That doesn't work that way. And so sometimes if your soul wants you to go in a particular direction, it will herd you from the field of life down into a smaller pen and then down a chute into a place where they can hold you in place so you can really think about what's going on. Your soul will sideline you, basically. And that's what happened to me. I lost my ability to hold down a job. I lost my ability to tell my husband what had gone on earlier in the day. Literally, my brain was going to pieces. And at the same time, we lost a lot of our financial resources. We were in a bankruptcy. My husband had decided he needed a secondary degree in order to be employed the way he needed to be employed. And so we're in bankruptcy. He's going back to school. He's also working full time. And I can't take care of myself, let alone anything else. And it was in this moment that I got the diagnosis that fit, but we couldn't afford the solution that was offered to me from conventional medicine. It was this 2-year plan with exotic rotating antibiotics and all of this stuff. And so I called the insurance company and said, well, what can you do for me here?
Right, sure. They must have said, sorry, ma'am, but there's really not much we can do, right?
Pretty darn close, but they led off with, we don't believe in chronic Lyme. It's like, oh, well, isn't that convenient?
Okay. Of course, right.
And then they punctuated it with, oh, and by the way, your doctor's no longer in network.
Oh,
Great.
yeah, don't you love that? You just
That's all
get
it
to
needed,
the
right?
doctor. Yeah, you just get to the doctor you like, and the following year flips over, and they're no longer in the network.
In the network, and it's all over but the shouting.
Oh,
And so I got off the phone with them, and I did the only thing I could think to do next, which was I called my father and said, we have an answer for what it is. Here's the solution that's been presented to me. We got no way to pay for this. The insurance company is not in for this, and the bank of Dad was empty as well. And that was a really hard moment because it's like all the doors had slammed in my face.
Yeah.
And we went to bed that night, and I'm laying next to my husband trying to meditate because I can't really sleep. My brain doesn't do that sleep cycle thing the way it used to anymore. It's reached that level of deterioration. And it was like a trapped squirrel, you know. It's like, well, maybe I could get a part-time job. No, I can't cook a 30-minute meal in 30 minutes. You know, it's all of the doors that have already closed, I'm going back to each of them and shaking it to see if there's another way to get through, and I can't find anything. And around 3 in the morning, I gave up. I did something I hadn't done in at least 3 decades, and I decided to have a conversation with God. And I said, God, I will do anything to get better.
Yeah.
And I meant it with every fiber of my being. And this little voice in the back of my mind said, really, anything? And that gave me some pause because anything is a big commitment. There are no boundaries on anything.
Exactly.
And I thought about it for a minute. I'm like, where are my edges of anything? And I wouldn't want to cheat anyone. I wouldn't want to hurt anyone. I wouldn't want to become an ex-murderer.
Right.
And it's like I'm talking to God. He's not going to ask me to rob people or hurt people in any way.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So, God, anything. I will sign on for anything. And I got my first miracle because I fell asleep. Something I hadn't done in a very long time. And I woke up in the morning with a clarity. And the clarity was I had to go into the doctor who's no longer covered. I had to get one of these IVs that I have no clue how I'm ever going to pay for it. But I need to get the toxins out of my system enough that I can function in some form. So I went and got this IV I had no clue how I was paying for. And, you know, serendipity, the doctor walks through the infusion room, which is something he doesn't do, right? And so I waved him over and said, here's my situation. Insurance is completely out of the picture for everything. What can you do for a cash pay client? And he said, well, if you're cash pay, then you have some options that you wouldn't under your insurance. We have a naturopath and an herbalist who's on staff who specializes in parasites, and Lyme is a parasite. And his office visits are half the price of mine, and the herbs are, you know, maybe $35 or $40 a bottle. You might want to explore that. And so I did.
So you did, right.
Yeah, there was a door I didn't even know was there.
Exactly. There was the first door that opened. Okay, right.
Yeah, exactly. And so a few days later, I had my appointment with this naturopath, and I'm sitting in his waiting room. And on the side table, there's this book that says emotion code. It got my attention for 2 reasons. A, it's a book. Usually you don't find those in waiting areas. And I've never known what to do with my emotions. I was raised by a German and a Norwegian. And what I learned was the equivalent of stuff it down and press on regardless. And that's not functional. Yeah. And so I wanted to read this book, and I picked it up, and I'm kind of leafing through it, because if this guy has got the code to emotions, I want to know. And then the person whose book it was came back for the book, so now I have to go out and buy my own copy. But I did, and one of the things that I learned in this book is that when we take our emotions and stuff them down like this, we use them in our physicality, and it creates physical problems for us when we do this. And he has this concept in there of the heart wall, and I knew for a fact I had one of those. I didn't even have to muscle test. It's like, I know I got one.
Yeah, you know.
And so I went through the process and was like taking this heart wall down as fast as humanly possible. And the more of the heart wall that came down, the more strange experiences I started having. And I mean strange experiences. It was knowing things about the past that I had no way to know, or things about the future that how could you even know that? I'm a people watcher, and so I have a tendency to look at people and go, I wonder what led them to make that choice, right? You see somebody doing something weird, but there's going to be a reason, right? It's not that people are bizarre. There's a logical reason. And I started to get the answer to that question in my mind. I would be shown the series of things that led up to them making that decision. It's like, okay, that's really wild. And then I started speaking in languages I hadn't learned. And I started seeing people who'd crossed over and angels. And it's like, I'm losing my fucking mind, right? The scientist in me is going, your marbles are all gone, lady.
Oh, my God.
And so I'm discounting and writing things off and blaming it on my poor damaged brain.
Wait, hold. We're going to take a break here because I want to hear
this.
This is when it gets good, when the things start opening up for you. So I want to hear about that. So let's take our first break, guys, and stay tuned, and I'll be back in 2 minutes with Sophia.
Conscious media for conscious minds. OMTimes. Host your show on IOM-FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM-FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Hi, I'm Melisa Caprio from Postcards to the Universe, creating the life you crave. Do you believe in magic? What if I told you all you had to do was get a little creative and work a dream spell to bring anything you can imagine into your life? Well, guess what? I've got the spell for you. Postcards to the Universe, a global movement for manifestation, is a casting magical tool for you to use whenever you want. How does living in passion sound to you? Join me in my movement where you get to create in the magical playground. Let's think outside the box and do some playful conjuring. By casting out our desires with a manifesting postcard, we explore our hearts and allow the alchemy of our dreams to appear. And don't forget to tune in each week here on OMTimes Radio with my show, Postcards to the Universe, creating the life you crave at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. I share tips on creativity, abundance, and prosperity, and you will be introduced to the coolest guests, trailblazers, mystics, and creatives who enrich our lives.
My name is Victor Furman. Some call me The Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio, and we'll explore these topics and so much more on Destination Unlimited.
The rainbow is God's promise of hope for you and me. And though the clouds hang heavy and the sun we cannot see, we know above the dark clouds that fill the stormy sky, hope's rainbow will come shining through when the clouds have drifted by. Teresa Caprio is the president and founder of Rainbow Guardian Inc., a nonprofit 501c3 serving the intellectually challenged/developmentally disabled, including autism. Teresa started the foundation in 1995 so she could help make a better life for her intellectually challenged daughter. Her dream is that the Rainbow Guardian will provide the necessary tools and education to help the public understand the special needs population, because it's often discarded in mainstream society. To find out more or make a donation in support, please go to www.rainbowguardian.org. Rainbow Guardian's special mission is to see these unique people live a happy, full life and have a future of liberty and equality.
Welcome back. So if you're just joining me, I have transformation alchemist ZofiaRennea Morales on. And so Zofia, before the break, we were talking about the things that were shifting in you because of the health issues that had come up, and a prayer that you put out to God, the universe, doesn't matter, whatever you call it, the higher power, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
To help you. You were asking for help. Please help me. I'll do anything. I don't want to live this way anymore. So go ahead. I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, well, and the life I'd been living up to that point was very, what you would term maybe humanistic, very scientific and rationally based. 2 + 2 = 4. It's all got to be replicatable, and this other stuff is just like fairy tales.
Okay.
Okay, so that was the mindset I was moving out of, and I'm in this phase right now where all of my clairs are turning on. All of this extrasensory perception kind of stuff is happening. I walk into Walmart and I can feel this wave of emotions and feelings and stuff, and the world became a very loud place.
I can imagine.
And I've been discounting all of these things, writing them off, until I came home from the grocery store one day. And my neighbor was staggering under her husband's weight, trying to help him into the house. And he's all doubled over. You can tell he's in a great deal of pain. And so, to heck with the ice cream, I run over and help her get him in the house. And she tells me she's got to go make a call to the kidney doctor. Can I, keep him company? Sure, no problem. So she's going to get this emergency appointment with the kidney doctor. And I'm with this man. He's in his early 80s, and you can tell he's in a lot of pain. And can I make you comfortable? And there's really no way to make comfortable. So we're just standing in the living room, and I'm holding his hands. And he's got his eyes closed, and I can see his lips are moving. And I feel a little uncomfortable just spying on him talking to the divine. I know him to be a very devout man. And so I closed my eyes to give him some privacy. And what I saw in my eyes when I closed was this little tiny flame. It was like a pilot light that's on the edge of going out. You know how they kind of jump and flicker before they go poof. And I was given this knowing that was the state of his life force right now. He's on the edge of just going poof and leaving.
He's right there,
right there. And I haven't acknowledged who I'm talking to. I just had my first conversation with God in 3 decades, a week or so earlier.
Right.
And I said, is there something we can do about that?
So this is what you're saying in your mind's
in my mind, yes. Is there something that we can do? That's what I said in response to the information I was given. And the instant I asked that question, that flame got big and powerful and bright and like this huge roaring bonfire suddenly. And I didn't have time to really even process that, and he's dropped my hands. And so I opened my eyes, and he says, "Are you a healer?" And I'm looking around to see who's talking to, because this is nowhere on my radar that this is even a possibility. And I was saved from having to answer because his wife came back in the room and said, "Okay, we've got an emergency appointment. We have to leave right now if we're going to get there." And so we hustle them all out into the car, and I go hide in my house for a couple of days and try and process what has gone on.
What just happened.
Right? Yeah, exactly. And it took me about 2 days to convince myself that nothing had happened. It was all my imagination. And I'm a rotten neighbor because I haven't brought over soup. For all I know, he's in intensive care and she's struggling to keep the house together. And so, okay, fine. I work up my nerve and I go next door and I knock on the door. And she opens the door and I see this great big smile on her face. She's like, "Oh, we're so happy to see you." I'm like, okay, so he's not in the hospital.
Right.
And so she brings me in the house and I see him. He's kicked back in his Barca-lounger. He's got a drink at his elbow and the remote and his book, and he's looking fat and happy. I'm like, well, how you doing?
Yeah.
And he says, it was the strangest thing. Because by the time we got to the doctor's office, I was feeling so much better. And they ran me through the usual battery of kidney tests. And I had normal kidney function for the first time in decades.
Oh, my God. I just got chills.
And the scientists
I just got goosebumps.
had to sit down and shut the fuck up. And all of this stuff I've been discounting.
Right.
I have to look at this in a different light now.
Yeah,
because
you must have been like, wow, what just happened?
What just happened, exactly. And this must be some of this anything that I signed on for. And what does all of this mean, right? So it starts you off on this huge journey of opening up and learning what's going on with you. There are names for these experiences that I've been having, and there are gifts that are attached to these experiences, even though when it all turns on like that, it doesn't really feel like a gift.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it doesn't. It must be very like shocking to the whole system, Like, what do you mean?
Yeah, exactly.
What do I do with this now,
Well, and I start to get more careful about the questions I'm asking myself, right?
Right.
Because some things are just like TMI.
Wow. What is your husband? Are you bouncing this off of your husband, or are you keeping this still pretty much just inside of you right now?
Well, for the first 3 or 4 months, it was like I'm keeping it very quiet into myself because I'm convinced I'm losing my mind, right?
But how is your body feeling at that time? Are you feeling more energized? Are you feeling like are the symptoms
I'm actually starting finally to get better, right? Because I've been working with this naturopath herbalist, and it took about 3 months to put the Lyme disease away. But it leaves a lot of what I want to say wreckage in its wake. It's like the hurricane has passed through, and now you have to clean up the shattered immune system and the leaky gut and all of this other stuff. And the body is never quite the same, but it's significantly better than it was, and the mind has recovered substantially, which is like, thank you, Jesus.
Yeah, so as your body is recovering, you're opening up to all these new experiences. So what is it like, for those listening who are very sensitive? Because I know one of your talking points, you like to talk about thriving in a world as a sensitive. And I'm super interested in that because I am super sensitive. I need a lot of shut off and protection. You know what I'm saying? Because it's a little overwhelming sometimes for me. So what could you offer us for those, for us sensitives out there who, like you said, you go to the grocery store and you're like, whoa.
Whoa, how do I deal with this?
Yeah.
Well, and some of us are born turned on with that volume turned all the way up. And since we're not taught how to turn it down, we develop these dysfunctional coping habits. A lot of people pleasing, right? Because it's hard enough to say no to people, and then if you're a sensitive, you say no to people and you get their emotional backlash as well. They don't necessarily intend to send it your way, but you receive it because you're so sensitive. And one of the things that helped me a ton with that, there's a lady out there by the name of Rosetree. Excuse me, I need to clear my throat a second.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. I do it all the time on the radio because this is live. So.
I'd rather not blow people's ears out. Rosetree has this series on the empowered empath, and book 1 of that series is literally a 30-day workbook that has different exercises you can do that help you with discernment of what's yours and what's not yours, because that's a real complicating thing when you're highly sensitive. It's like, I've got a headache, but it might not be my headache, right?
Yeah.
And so it's important to be able to discern if it's your headache or your husband's headache before you go taking aspirin, right? It might be better if you gave him the aspirin if it's his headache. So she's got a bunch of exercises that help with discernment, as well as learning to turn people up and turn people down, which is really super helpful, because you can turn somebody way down and then you can tell them no without the backlash, which is a nice thing to have, that ability to do that. And that was actually one of my favorite exercises. I use my volume button all the time now.
Ah, that's good. I never used a volume button. I use white light protection or mirrors. Like I have vision mirrors all around me, so that bounces back out there and not on, and I don't take it in.
Well, and white light is wonderful. It does a lot of great things for you, but there are also more effective forms of shielding that a body can do. Than just the plain white light. I try to avoid mirrors, because the problem with mirrors is unintended consequences. Things bounce off random directions. And I kind of like
thought about it. I'm just like,
keep my karma a little more under control than that.
I look at it as, hey, if you're coming at me with your daggers, it's just going right back at you.
Well, some of it will, but again, mirrors will send it off whatever direction it goes.
That's a good point, yeah.
I try to do something a little more thoughtful and specific than just a random mirror. So that book was hugely helpful to me to go through all of those exercises. And I love that she's got 30 days, because what you discover is some of these things will work a treat for you, and some of these things it's like, okay, this didn't do a thing for me.
Right,
so just move on to the next one.
Yeah, because everybody resonates with something different, sure. And what's the author's name again? Rose Tree. Rose Tree.
The series is The Empowered Empath.
The Empowered Empath. Okay. Yeah.
And there's 4 books in that series, but book 1 is the one that unlocked everything for me, as far as being able to control what I'm taking in and what I'm not taking in.
Gotcha. Yeah, which is important. So you said, you mentioned that you have a scientist's brain. So were you always spiritual, and what does living your spirituality daily look like? Okay.
I will say I have always been spiritual. It's religion that I've had issues with. I was raised in a really strict form of Lutheranism. You didn't dance, you didn't drink, you didn't do all that stuff. And they firmly believed that these experiences of the spiritual were of the devil, unless you were, back in the days of Jesus. I mean, miracles and stuff could happen back then, but not now.
Okay.
which is strange and random to my thinking.
Yeah, to me too. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so religion and I have never gotten on very well, but when I was a child, I would have prescient dreams and this sort of thing. And that was something that I repressed and shut down, because this whole it's of the devil bullshit. It's like, I don't want to be of the devil, right? Yeah. And so the prescient dreams have not returned, but I had them when I was younger. The thing that stayed with me always was the knowing. I've always had the knowing, but I've always explained it off as I've got this really great memory. And so you didn't want to play trivia games against me, because I would kick your butt. Because
that's good.
Because I just knew,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so spirituality is something I could embrace, because that's the relationship with the divine, and I'm okay with that. But when I was in high school, I asked for an understanding. And the way we generally gain understanding is by going through something. And the understanding that I asked for is, how is it that atheists cannot see the hand of God in everything?
Okay.
Because it was so apparent to me that the hand of God was lining things up for me. And as I went through the tail end of high school and college and into my career life, I started to slip more and more into that. I don't see it. I don't see the hand of God. Life is cruel and that sort of thing. And so I did spend several decades basically as a functional atheist. I didn't interact with God. I didn't look for miracles. I didn't expect any miracles in my life until that prayer. And then it's like, okay, now it's all turned back on.
Okay. So you remember when you had it when you were young, and then it sort of slipped away or closed down. You closed down, and then it opened back up.
Yeah,
Interesting.
Exactly.
Yeah, because you talk about making miracles happen. And what does that mean? What does that look like, making miracles happen?
Making miracles happen there are many beautiful things that happen in this world, and there are two forms of miracles out there. There is what I call the divine feminine miracle. It's the process miracle. It's the miracle of giving birth and growth and harvest and seeding and planting and sowing and all that kind of stuff, reaping in the fall. This is the natural miracle that happens on a day-to-day basis that our lives rely on and that we take for granted frequently. Okay? And then there is the divine masculine miracle, which is the suspension of the normal laws of nature for this incredible thing to just appear where it ought not to exist.
Right.
And we get both of those kinds of miracles in our lives on a regular basis. And I find the more you recognize and appreciate them, the more they show up. The other
that makes
thing
sense. I think of the same thing with gratitude. I feel like the more we're grateful for something, then the more things show up for us to be grateful for. So that resonates very strongly with me, what you were saying. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
And we all
you know
of us,
what? Before we get to the other thing,
we've got a break, don't we?
I just looked at the clock, and I'm like, oh, yeah, let's do it now. And then we're going to come back and get to the other thing. So stay tuned. We'll be back in 2 minutes.
The Real Conscious Connection. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Imagine yourself being transported to India, to the banks of the Ganga and an ashram in Rishikesh. Visualize that you are welcome to satsang with an American sannyasi who shares the wisdom of her guru. Your visualization has manifested. Join Sattvi Bhagawati Saraswati for inspiration and transformation every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio.
Hi, I'm Melisa Caprio from Postcards to the Universe, creating the life you crave. Do you believe in magic? What if I told you all you had to do was get a little creative and work a dream spell to bring anything you can imagine into your life? Well, guess what? I've got the spell for you. Postcards to the Universe, a global movement for manifestation, is a casting magical tool for you to use whenever you want. How does living in passion sound to you? Join me in my movement where you get to create in the magical playground. Let's think outside the box and do some playful conjuring. By casting out our desires with a manifesting postcard, we explore our hearts and allow the alchemy of our dreams to appear. And don't forget to tune in each week here on OMTimes Radio with my show, Postcards to the Universe, creating the life you crave at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. I share tips on creativity, abundance, and prosperity, and you will be introduced to the coolest guests, trailblazers, mystics, and creatives who enrich our lives.
COVID-19, brought to you by CDC and the Ad Council.
If you're feeling increasingly lonely right now, you're not alone. It's totally normal. Even though we may not be able to get together in person, connecting virtually with friends and family still gives you a chance to interact with people and may help raise your spirits. Join a virtual book club, set up group text chats, or online video coffee breaks with coworkers.
Find more self-care and coping tips at coping-19.org.
Welcome back. So right before the break, Zofia, we were talking about making miracles happen, and you were just about to go on to another point, and I had to unfortunately cut you off. So I'm going to let you pick back up where you left off.
Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to remember what my other point was. I guess I kind of did look at miracles / magic in two categories. There's miracle with the little m, or magic with the little m, which is what we want personally, kind of what our ego would like to have. And then I have the big M, magic miracle, which is about the divine and what our larger mission in this world is about. And I find when both of those come together, your little m desires and the big M of the universe, that's when incredible things really start to happen.
Yeah, like what happened with you, for example, which you didn't know was going to happen when you prayed, that night, that was going to spark a miracle in your own life.
Yeah, and I had no idea what the anything was going to look like, which is probably just as well.
Yeah. Well, you were saying that. I know you've claimed that spirituality helps us, offers really practical tools for us to problem solve. So what do you mean by that? Like, how can we utilize what you're talking about today in our own lives?
Well, here's one thing I've come to recognize as I've gone down this journey. We're raised to interact with this world like it's the only thing, this 3D concrete. I have a physical body and there are physical objects around me. But the bottom line is everything that we imagine that is solid and concrete is actually a set of vibrations of particles so tiny we can't measure them.
Right.
In fact, so as to have no weight whatsoever.
Right. Yeah, I know.
And there are moments in your life where you run up against situations that don't respond as they're supposed to, right? You've done everything you're supposed to do. You've taken all the physical steps you're supposed to take, and the problem still hasn't gone away. And that's because the source of the problem, the core of the problem, does not exist in this physical world. The source of the problem is coming to you from some other level. It's from a past life. It's from a subconscious belief or understanding. It's from an experience you contracted to have here in this world, because we learn through these physical conflicts and upsets that happen in this world of duality. And so if the source is not a physical one, if it lies in one of those other higher dimensions, of course it's not going to respond to the conventional wisdom.
Right.
That's not the reason it's here. And so once you recognize that there are these other dimensions to your life and what's happening, it opens you up to find the root core of the problem and fix it at that level. And then the physical falls into place.
Wow. Yeah, that makes so much sense to me. So do you help people do that, recognize it? If I came to you and I said, Zofia, I'm struggling really with this, issue. And I can't figure out for the life of me where it came from, why, I was raised by a good family, I've
done all the right things.
Right, I've done all the work, and here I am. So do you help people in that way?
That is my specialty as basically a spiritual troubleshooter. And a lot of people look at me as kind of the healer of last resort. I've tried every other fucking thing.
Yeah. A spiritual troubleshooter. It's like when you're calling for your computer, you're looking for the troubleshooter. I like that. We'll be like, call Sophia. She's the spiritual troubleshooter. She'll figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. And between the intuitive gifts that I have and my ability to look at the soul contract that you put together for this world, we can generally very quickly come to identify where that holdup is.
Oh, so you can be talking to somebody and you will get a inner knowing that, let's say they have a soul contract that they have to work on forgiveness. So they happen to get betrayed a lot.
Yeah.
You'll pick that up right away. You'll see it. You'll be like, oh, you have forgiveness in this life that you have to work on.
Yeah, sometimes I'll get it out of the patterns of the stories that they tell me. Sometimes it'll be a knowing that arrives. Sometimes it shows up literally in the soul contract. It's like, yes, you're here to learn about unconditional love. And so you're going to love a lot of people who don't deserve it.
I think a lot of us have a little bit of that one.
Well, especially light workers, right? Because we care so much about the world, and we want everyone to be happy and to be in a good space. And it's easy as a light worker to forget that we come here for these dense experiences. We come here to experience what it is to be physically incapacitated in some way and to have to learn a different way to put our power out into the world. And so it's very easy for us to look at somebody and go, oh, you're struggling, I just want to pluck you out of that. But that shortchanges the person from the experience that they wanted to have. And so then they'll manifest that experience another way because that was part of what they came here to experience.
Right.
And
so how do people respond? They after they found out that this is what they're working on, let's say, and they're dealing with the people in their lives, maybe their own personal health. After they come to you, and that's been acknowledged, and they understand that yes, that's what's happened. Does a healing inside of them happen? How the question I'm trying to ask?
I do.
Okay.
Does the problem immediately go away is the question. And
well,
the answer
I know
is
it's not necessarily.
Sometimes yes, sometimes no, right? Because it's a choice. It's a free will choice. Okay. Do I continue on with this lesson plan as much as it's sucking so that I can get the diamonds that are going to come out of going through all of this? Right. Or do I want to maybe say I'm done with that one right now for this lifetime and take on something a little more manageable? And people make decisions both directions. I've had people who are like, okay, this unconditional love thing is just too overwhelming right now. And so we'll do a soul contract renegotiation. So that they can break that pattern, so they can end that particular set of lesson plans and bring in something else that feels more manageable for them. Because when we make these plans, we are out of bodies. We forget how dense it is down here, how intense it is. Yeah. And so we get overly ambitious sometimes when we create our lesson plans. So that's one option is to renegotiate that. And then sometimes it's like, you know what, I just want to power through this and get this lesson plan done with. And so I've had people who are like, okay, I see that and I see what's going on and I'm going to continue doing it. Okay, fabulous.
Wow. So if someone's working with you, how do you redo somebody's or rework the contract? How is that done?
We do a lot of clearing with the individual before we set that new set of intentions, right? Because we want to get rid of as many subconscious catches and this sort of thing before we go into it, because you don't want a contract for something that's going to be worse. So we take care of the things that would kind of lead you down that road. It usually takes 4 or 5 sessions if you want to reset your contract to get you cleaned up enough to give you some time to really sit with, well, what do I want to do instead? And to come up with the thing that we want to put in there instead. And then there are a few ways to do it. I do the renegotiation. I can bring in the symbols of that new contract. And some people like to bring through the vibration of that new contract and literally take on a different name, because that's where your soul contract is housed, is in the vibration of your name.
That's interesting. So you mean people will actually change their names, legally?
Yeah.
Wow. That's so interesting.
Well, and generally the people who do that are like, I am so freaking over this.
Yeah.
But it's like the name change is a relief,
That's interesting. That's interesting, because I go by my middle name. I don't go by my first name. I'm called my middle name. So that's interesting. Yeah. We'll have to talk privately about some things sometime.
Yeah, well, we'll have to take a look at your soul contract, and we'll see what the energies are around that.
You may be like, you might want to go use your first name.
Maybe not. It might be that you found the optimal vibrations by going by your middle name.
That is very, very true. It's interesting. I just never knew it had the name being associated with it, but it does make sense. It really, really does. Okay, so so many people, and I hear from so many people, and a lot of people that listen to my show, and I've been there myself, they're not fulfilled in their life. So what could we offer people who are listening right now to find fulfillment exactly where you are right now, even if you're in the midst of a
situation that kind of stinks?
Even if you're having a tough situation right now, what can people do?
Well, the first thing to recognize, and this is kind of a hard pill to swallow, so if you're like, oh no, I can't even imagine that, understand that that's a normal first reaction to this, which is you choose how happy you are in any moment. And we've been trained to look outside of ourselves for our happiness, that our environment is what's going to make us happy. And if you talk to people who have all of the things in their environment that's supposed to make you happy, you will find a great many of them are not. Okay.
Yes.
And this is a lie that society tells us. When you are married, when you have the house and the 3.5 kids and the car and the great career and all of the money and all of this stuff, you'll be happy. It's a someday proposition, the way the world puts it to us. But the truth is, you can be happy right here, right now. You can be grateful right here, right now. And every single one of us has something to be happy about and something to be grateful for right here, right now, this now moment. I don't care what your circumstances are. There's something for you to be happy or grateful about. And you have the choice to focus on those things, or you have the choice to focus on the missing pieces, the things that suck, the things that are painful. Okay, so happiness is a choice, and it takes some practice. So give yourself some grace if it doesn't come automatically or naturally. It took me years to get to the point that I could be happy in adverse circumstances. Yeah. So it's a skill. So that's one of the first things that you can do. That's one of the best things you can do for yourself, because happy people attract amazing things. And that doesn't mean you can't have a bad day. It doesn't mean you can't be upset or disappointed. We're all human. We all have these moments where we have these reactions. But then you have the choice of, do you stay there, or do you look for something positive to be happy or grateful about?
Yeah, I agree with you. And I know that as humans, we have a tendency to go to the negative. So it is a lot of work. It's just practice.
Yeah, well,
it's just it's working your spiritual muscles, Exactly.
Well, and it's a survival mechanism that you're struggling against here, right? Because if you don't pay attention to the tiger that's in the bushes, you're going to get eaten.
Exactly.
We don't have as many tigers in the bushes now, so you don't need to be in that state all the time. But you are fighting against a biological imperative, so cut yourself a break.
Right. Practice.
Yeah.
So we only have a couple of minutes. Is there anything that you really want to share with us that we should know? Any practical tools or tips we could be doing right now to shift ourselves and our own vibration?
One of the things that was most helpful for me was to recognize that the voice of the ego in my mind, the one that tells me I'm not good enough, the one that sounds vaguely like my mother, that criticizes me all the time, that's not you. Okay, so don't take that on as being you. And once I recognize that voice is part of this biological imperative that helps to keep us alive, the ego, and its whole objective is to keep you safe. But it has not been trained into what makes you safe and what makes you happy and what will be supportive to you. And once I started working with that voice like it was an untrained employee, the relationship with that voice got a lot better. And it didn't rule my life and beat me up all of the time anymore.
Right. Yeah, I like that. Looking at it as like an employee, like you're training your employee. So if people want to work with you, Zofia, what's the best way that they can find you? Where would they find you?
I have two doorways. One is kind of fun, and if you're one of these people who kind of likes to watch and look before you jump in with both feet, you can do this. You can go to superpowerquiz.us, and you'll take a fun little quiz that will tell you about your particular spiritual giftedness, and it will put you on my email list, and you can lurk to your heart's content until you're ready to come out. Okay. Now, if you're in one of these spaces where it's like, I need to talk to her now, I offer a free 20-minute conversation where we can look at your situation, see kind of what's going on, and then we can make a decision about whether it makes sense to continue working together. You can take that information and go off and find your own way through it. And you can go to bookzofiacoffeechat.com to get on my calendar for one of those. So it's BOOKZOFIA coffeechat.com.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Zofia, for being here with me today. And guys, please check her out. It was so fun talking with you. Thank you for listening to Postcards to the Universe with Melisa, creating the life you crave. And I'm wishing everyone a wonderful week filled with joy, abundance, and love. Peace.